Hello everyone, very good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Myself Sanat Kumar Swai, Assistant Professor at Vedang Institute of Technology, Bhubaneswar, and we'll be taking the class of process of communication. Okay, what is the process of communication, and what are the factors that influence the communication? Okay, so today's class is about the communication. Okay, very important and very interesting chapter. Okay, so we'll go into a few slides and we'll see the what is the process, okay, and what are the influences. Okay, so what do you mean by communication? What exactly means communication? See, that's a in a layman term, if you see that communication is just a flow of information. That may be an information, that may be an idea. Okay. So how does an information flows from one person to another, from one place to another? There's an exchange of idea, there's an exchange of information, okay, sometimes emotions as well. Okay, so what happens is that if you are looking at the Indian in the Indian scenario particularly, the cultural diversity comes into play. Okay, next is multilingualism. There are a lot of languages. Multilingualism, not a single particular language has been spoken in throughout India. A lot of languages are being spoken, thousands of languages are being spoken. So what happens that these creates a challenge for the communication process. Okay, but anyways, nevertheless, what happens is that we need to understand the elements, we need to understand the factors. Okay, so that there's a clarity in the communication process. Okay, so basically what happens is that communications means a flow of information. Okay, and that's very important in particular, maybe in the personal or the professional context. Okay, without a proper communication, then definitely that can create catastrophic effects. Okay, miscommunication, sometimes a lot of issues and conflict happens just because of miscommunication. Okay, so next, now the process of communication. What do you mean by the process of communication? Hmm? What happens? How does the flow of information or the flow of communication takes place? See, there are several key components, okay, that works to convey a message from a. See, there are two person. One is the sender. Okay, there's two person. One is the sender, and the other one is the receiver. So how does the information goes from the sender to the receiver? Okay, so this is the process of communication. But what happens is there are certain other components. For example, the sender who sends, the receiver who receives, the channel, okay, and the code and the topic and the message, the context. There are a lot of components are there which we need to understand, and each component plays a very important role in ensuring that there is a effective and seamless communication. Okay. Now, the first one is sender. Now, who is sender? What do you mean by a sender? Sender means somebody, anyone, from where the information is being generated or the information is being passed from one person to another, from one place to another. Okay. So the initiator, you can say the sender means the initiator. Okay, the initiator of the message, the initiator of the information. Okay. Second, what happens is that this sender must be clear about what they want to convey to ensure that the message is being understood and intended. Sometimes what happens that though the information is being forwarded or is being sent, but the intended message doesn't go through. Okay. So what happens though it has been clear? I mean the The information is clear, but the intention or that intended message doesn't get clear. Okay, so what happens that the sender must be very clear about it, that what that sender is intending through his or her message or through his or her information. Okay, so for example, who is the sender here? If we talk about a teacher, a teacher teaching or in a classroom can be called as a sender because it is transmitting the information, it is transmitting some ideas to the entire classroom. Okay. You're all clear about sender, right? Next is receiver. Who is the receiver? Who is the receiver? The receiver is anybody whom the information or the idea or the message has been intended to. I intend to send a message, so I becomes the sender. Now you receive the you're receiving the message, so you are the receiver. Okay. So what happens is that to ensure that the communication process has occurred in a much effective way, what happens is that if the receiver is able to interpret what I mean to say, I mean to say something and you are understanding something else, and then there is a miscommunication. That cannot be termed as an effective communication. Okay. So effective communication is only when what I intend to tell or what I intend to share, and that exactly you are getting that my intended message in a proper way. Okay. So for example, students listening to the teacher and comprehending the concept being taught. Okay. So what the teacher wants to tell the students and what the students are understanding. If it is in synchronization, what the teacher want to say is similar to what the students are listening and what they are comprehending, then we can say that yes, that is been a effective communication. Okay. Or else we can say that's a very ineffective communication. I hope that we are having an effective communication. Okay, you are understanding what I mean to say, or you are grasping what my intended message or what my intended information and ideas are. Okay, right. Next, channel. So channel is basically the medium through which the information or the flow of idea is being transmitted. Okay. And that can be anything. Okay, see, through right now what we are doing, right now we are using the verbal way of medium, and simultaneously we are doing the written. Okay, it can also be electronics, it can also be non-verbal. Okay, anything, messages. Okay, so anything which is a channel, which is a medium through which the information is being transmitted, is known as a channel. Okay. So what happens is that the choice of channel can significantly affect the clarity and reception of the message. Okay. So what kind of channel we are using, that also is very much important for the clarity or the effectiveness of that message. For example, a manager of any company, he or she is sending an email to the company, to the employees of that company for any kind of meeting, of a personal meeting. Okay, so that can be the email can be termed as a channel, right? Next, code. So what do you mean by code? How do I send my message? How do I send my ideas or information? That can be for example, here the language I'm speaking. So here English language is the code. Okay. Or sometimes certain symbols are being used to convey the messages. If you're looking at Indian scenario, you see language plays a very important role in effective communication. Code, okay, or you can say language or you can say code, whatever. It plays a very important role for any kind of effective communication. Okay. Example. Uh, if you're talking about English, right now, the medium or the code of information in today's class is English. Why we are using English as the basic code of or basic medium of um, instruction in today's class? Because you see that English has the ability to accommodate various kinds of participants from different language background. People come from different backgrounds, and not all of them. Okay, because English is a common language which everybody is well versed to. So that is why we are using an effective communication way or effective code that is known as language. Got it? So here the code means the language which we are using. Next topic. Okay. So topic is the subject matter, okay, of communication. What is the subject matter of our communication? Okay. Today's communication. So that is known as topic. Okay. And what happens is that should also be it should be relevant and of interest to the receiver. The sender is saying something irrelevant to the topic, then that becomes ineffective communication. Okay. The sender is sending out the message or sending out the information or ideas which is in relevance to and interest to the receiver, then that is been termed as a effective communication. Okay. For example, discussing the latest technological advancement in a seminar for IT professionals. Maybe in something else. I mean, you are discussing some IT technology to the IT professional in a seminar, or a teacher is teaching something which is in synchronization or in alignment with the interest of the student, and that can be termed as a topic. Okay, and that is relates to effective communication. Next, message. Okay, the message means it can be any information, any idea, any feeling, or whatever a sender wants to communicate to the audience, to the receiver. That is known as message. Okay, and that has to be very clear to avoid any kind of misinterpretation. If it is not clear, then misinterpretation can occur, and the whole process becomes ineffective. Right? For example, the company CEO is delivering a speech about the future goals and visions of the organization. Okay, so that speech is known as message, giving a message about the organizational goals of, okay, to the employees of that organization. Right. Next, context. What do you mean by context? Context means you say where is situation? What is the situation in which the message or the information is being passed on? Okay, or the communication process is being taken place. Okay, sometimes what happens is that the context may be a physical setting. Sometimes it can be a social setting, or that can be a cultural background where you are trying to communicate. Okay, where you are going to communicate, that is important. Okay, that can be any kind of setting. Okay, any physical, maybe any seminar, maybe a classroom, maybe a social setting, maybe a meeting. Okay, a family background, anywhere. Okay, so that is known as the context. Okay, any environment or situation where you are going to communicate to the audience or the receiver. For example, a business meeting held in a conference room versus an informal discussion over lunch. Okay, so same meeting is being done. One meeting is being done in a conference room, and the same meeting is done in an informal way or informal discussion while having lunch. Differs. Okay, so that's the background, you can say, or that is the physical setting has been changed. Okay, so that is known as the context. Next, feedback. Now, once the information has been given to, okay, or once the idea has been conveyed to the sender, okay, what is the response from the receiver? Response in the sense whether that information has been passed properly, whether that has been understood properly by the receiver, Okay, that is known as feedback. Okay. So what happens is that why is it important to have the feedback? Because it helps in refining and improving future communication. If there is an ineffective communication, then the sender will try to refine it and try to improve it in the future communication. For example, students asking question to the teacher to clarify doubts after a lesson. So when a teacher is giving a class and given the information to the students, and the students, they are trying to ask questions to the teacher after a lesson. So what happens that there's a communication. Okay, that means the students have not understood it properly and they want to clarify certain doubts or certain points from the teacher. So that's known as feedback. Okay. Okay. Next is factors influencing communication noise. Okay. Noise. Okay. What are the factors which is going to influence communication? The first one is noise. Noise means anything with that try to disrupt the information. That can be external physical noise. Okay. That can be physical noise. That can be psychological, or that can be semantic. Okay. Physical means external noise which we hear. While conveying the message, you see there are external noise sounds, and that is known as physical noise. Second is psychological. Psychological prejudices. Okay, sometimes what happens that you intentionally prejudice against somebody, and the message you are passing on, that is psychological. That is can be termed as noise. Or that can be semantic. Semantic means misunderstanding of words. You say something, they understand something. Okay, understanding, misunderstanding of words. That is known as semantic. Okay. Now, for example, construction noise outside a classroom making hard for the students to hear the lectures. So, for example, we are taking the class right now and there's a construction going on outside the classroom. So, the construction noise is obstructing or distorting the messages which I want to, or the teacher wants to convey to the students. So, the first one factor is noise. Next, filter. Filter. The filter is also one of the factor. What do you mean by filter? For example, personal experience, attitude, and beliefs that influence how the sender and receiver. So, I want to, for example, a sender wants to send the message to the receiver. So, based on the personal experience, based on the attitude, based on the beliefs of the sender, similarly, based on the personal experience, based on the attitude, and based on the beliefs of the receiver, how you are going to send and how you are going to receive. See, a teacher is going to teach the students, and a student is about, let's say, 50 students are there in a class. Not all the students are going to interpret that what the teacher is intending to teach the students, right? Similarly, the same topic is being taught by few different teachers, 10 different teachers. All the teachers will have different types of teachings or interpretation. Why? Because they have got different personal experiences, they've got different attitudes, they've got different beliefs. So that filters out information. Okay. Now, example, a personal cultural background affecting how they perceive a colleague's feedback. But definitely, okay, your personal background also affects the process of communication. Okay. Next, barriers. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So, what are the barriers? There are certain barriers which also impedes the effective communication, which hampers or obstruct the effective communication. So what are those? Those are linguistic, psychological, physical, or cultural. Linguistic. I want to say something, you are unable to listen. You are unable to understand this. Linguistic. Psychological. What I perceive, you may not be able to perceive. Physical. Okay. Maybe the way I or the sender wants to convey that may not be able perceived by the students in a, or the receiver in a better way. Okay. Next is cultural. Okay, the cultural norms also plays an important role, and that also creates a barrier in the effective communication. Okay, What happens, the language barrier, when a person from a non-English speaking background struggles to understand. See, when if there is a speech or there is a class and there's a certain student who are unable to understand English, okay, they are coming from non-English speaking background, so that becomes very much difficult for the student to understand, okay, about the class or about the speech or about the information. So that becomes the barriers, okay, or that becomes the obstacle, okay, for effective communication. Right. Okay. So with this, we have come to the end of the slide. Okay. So what we have learned so far is that effective communication is essential for successful interaction in diverse contexts, particularly in a multicultural and See, as India is a multicultural country, a multilingual country. So effective communication is very much essential, very much important. Okay. Why? To understand, for successful interaction, for effective interaction, okay, we have to have effective communication, because we are coming from a diversified background, we are coming from a multicultural background. Okay. Next, understanding the components of the communication process and the factor that influence it can help individual convey the message. So we have to understand what are the components of the communication process, what are the factors which is going to influence it, what are the factors which is going to obstruct it, which is going to modify or change it. Then only we will be able to have a effective communication. Okay, without that, all the communication will be effective. Okay. Next, we have also learned that we have to be mindful of potential noises. There are a lot of noises. Okay, there are a lot of filters, there are a lot of barriers. Okay, and by seeking feedback, communicators can enhance the. See, we also should be open. Okay, I always tell that I am always a student. Why I am a student? Because I want to learn something. Okay, I want to learn something. I want a lot of feedbacks. That is what I always tell my students, that you please give feedback. You please tell me that, yes sir, here there's a problem and we need to understand this particular problem or particular topic in a more clarified way. I will be much more happy that yes, I have to increase or I have to enhance my effective communication so that my students will be able to understand it in a more better way. Okay, so that is important. I have to be very mindful of my potential, of the potential noises, of the potential filters, okay, or various kinds of barriers which is hampering my information flow to my students. Okay, and I have to take that in both in a personal way and in a professional way also. Okay, so I believe we have understood all the aspect of better communication. Again, the same thing. If you have any doubt, please jot down your doubts, or if you have any suggestion also, you please suggest it in the comment section, and I will be very much happy to clear off your doubts and suggestions. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much. Thanks.